The revolution called the Arab Spring has been sweeping from one nation to the other in the Middle East. Where did this revolution come from? Who fanned the flames of the fire? What are the goals? We'll talk about it today on Politics and Religion.
Look, there are two things I don't discuss: politics and religion.
In my house, we don't talk about politics and we don't talk about religion.
I'll talk to you about anything except politics and religion.
I never talk about politics and religion.
Politics determines how we'll live here on earth. Religion determines how we'll live forever. I'm Irvin Baxter. I think it's time we talk about it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to be back in Texas. It's also good to be back from a wonderful trip to the Holy Land. We just arrived Sunday afternoon, and it's so nice to be back here at our Endtime headquarters. At the same time, we had an absolutely outstanding tour to the Middle East. We don't have our itinerary set for next year, but if you want to go, we're aiming on May, the first part of May. So if you'd like to go with us, it's not too early to get your name on the list. Just call and ask to speak to someone about the tour. And as soon as we get the information together, we'll email it right out to you or else send it to you, however you'd like to get your information. But marvelous, marvelous tour. It was more than a tour. It was a spiritual experience. I'm absolutely sure that lives were forever changed. So great, great time. Maybe I'll tell you more about it as we go along, but it was a marvelous time. 38 of us total went on the tour, and we had a great time together, walking in the footsteps of Jesus, walking in the footsteps of the apostles and the prophets. Just an incomparable experience. We want to talk today about this Arab Spring. Really, most people, I find, are still groping. What's going on here? What's the deal with Yemen, with Tunisia, with Egypt, with Libya, with Syria? What's really going on? You know, when things this big are happening and yet people don't understand it, that's really concerning, because what you don't know can hurt you, probably more than what you do know. So when we sit by and we watch a revolution taking place and we don't really know who's behind the revolution, what are the goals, what's trying to be accomplished here, something's driving this thing. And these things don't just simply come out of thin air. There are forces, there is planning, there are huge dollars being pumped into this whole situation. And so I think that I've come to an understanding of what's really going on here. And so I felt like we should talk about it today. As I have followed the news day after day after day after day, reading I've read hundreds of articles so far, attempting to weed through all of the propaganda, all the hoopla, all the smoke and mirrors. I finally, in my mind, sorted it out, I think. I kept noticing four terms that would surface in many, many of the articles. One was the term responsibility to protect. The next term was International Criminal Court. Another term was NATO. And then always present was the little word oil. And as I looked at those four terms occurring repeatedly, a picture began to form in my mind. Now, responsibility to protect is probably fairly new to a lot of people. It's not that new to me, because I attended the World Summit at the United Nations in the year 2005. I went there as an accredited journalist representing Endtime Magazine and Politics and Religion radio program. And as I was there, after a day or two, normally at the beginning of the conference, they will publish what's called the outcome document. What that simply means is it's a summary of what the nations of the world have approved and that they will endorse at that summit. Normally, it's all prearranged. It's ready to go the first day of the conference. And then the conference is sort of like a celebration, or sort of like putting the bow on top of the package or the icing on the cake. But this particular year, there were some serious things under consideration, and they kept stalling the outcome document. I think it was day 2 in the evening before Secretary General Kofi Annan entered the press room, and I was sitting there in the middle of Associated Press, Reuters, ABC, Al Jazeera, and many other news services. I was sitting there probably 35 feet from Secretary General Kofi Annan, and he entered at first somewhat apologetic because there were some things that activists had been pushing for and that the press had been hyping that didn't get approved. So he was somewhat apologetic, but then he said, however, sometimes it depends on how you look at things. Sometimes we can say the glass is half empty, or we can say the glass is half full. He said, I've got something to report to you today that I think will cause all of us to leave here thinking the glass is half full. And then he introduced to us this concept of responsibility to protect. He said, for the first time, the nations of the world have agreed that the nations have a responsibility to protect people from their government if there are cases of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, or crimes of aggression. He said the nations of the world have agreed that from this point onward, the world community has a responsibility to protect people in cases of ethnic cleansing, genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes. Well, I had already been studying some of these things, and so I immediately understood, because you see, up until September 14 through 16, that's when the conference was held, of 2005, the Constitution of the United Nations said that the UN could only arbitrate between sovereign nations, that it could not interfere in the domestic affairs of nations. As soon as I heard this claim by the world community of the responsibility to protect people against their own government, I knew right then that national sovereignty had just come to an abrupt halt, that the United Nations was laying claim on the power to move into a nation state, first of all, to levy sanctions against that nation in order to bring the government down, and if that didn't work, to even trigger military might against the government in order to bring about a change of government. So I understood exactly what the claim was being made, and that this would indeed spell the end of national sovereignty. Well, it happened in 2005, and there wasn't a lot of things between then and now that occurred to really illustrate this until the Arab Spring, and in particular, Libya. Libya is a case in point. Now, back in 2009, Mr. Omar al-Bashir, the president of Sudan, a warrant was issued for his arrest from the International Criminal Court. So that was obviously an example where the world governmental system said, we're going to place a head of state under arrest and bring him before the world court. I mean, he is the president of a sovereign nation, or used to be sovereign nation. And yet this world court deems itself above his nation with the power to issue a warrant for his arrest and to haul him before the world court and place him on trial. Now, here's the way it works. You pick on the little guys first until you're big enough to take on the big boys. So, after all, what's Sudan going to do about it? Are they going to come against the United Nations? Are they going to take on NATO? No, of course they're not. They can't. You notice they didn't pick on Great Britain. They didn't pick on the United States of America. They picked on nations. You cannot imagine them trying to arrest Vladimir Putin of Russia. It's not going to happen. But they pick on small, weak nations to set precedent while all the time sending a message to all the nations of the world. The world community in this interdependent day now has a court system that can even put kings and heads of state on trial. 2 heads of state in the last 2 years have had warrants issued for their arrest, Mr. al-Bashir of Sudan, and then more recently, Mr. Muammar Gaddafi of Libya. Okay, so this responsibility to protect is a big, big deal. You say, well, who determines when the UN goes in or does not go in? Are you ready for this? The UN. So who protects us from the UN? Nobody. The same person that protected Germans from Adolf Hitler. Nobody. Sovereignty rests somewhere. Now then it's moving from the nation state to the one world governmental system. So the United Nations is prosecutor, jury, and judge of who has or has not committed crimes against humanity, war crimes, genocide, or ethnic cleansing. If they accuse you of it and build a case against you, there's no court of appeals. You go before their court system, and the same people who arrest you and prosecute you and judge you, those are the same people that put you on trial. So it's really an uncomfortable situation. But that's what our world is evolving into right now. And the Arab Spring is the perfect illustration of this. Okay, let me just run down with you, just to cut to the chase here. Because here is what has happened in Libya. The Arab Spring Revolution started in Libya on February the 15th. The government of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi arrested human rights activist Fatai Tarbel. And this sparked a riot in the city of Benghazi and marked the beginning of the Arab Spring Revolution in Libya. Now, protests immediately escalated, and then 11 days later, on February the 26th, the UN Security Council imposed sanctions on Gaddafi. 11 days. Now, you know how long we've let this thing go on with Bashar Assad? Months. 11 days. And the UN leveled sanctions against Gaddafi. Wonder why? Why so quick? Well, we're going to talk about that more as we continue on Politics and Religion.
Maybe you've listened to Politics and Religion for years, and every time you hear us talk about Endtime's free weekly e-newsletter, you say to yourself, today is the day I go to endtime.com and sign up. But the teacher from school calls, Junior's sick, your husband texts you a picture of the mailbox that Susie ran over while learning to back out of the driveway, and as you try to get out of the door, your boss is waiting for that detailed report that was actually due yesterday. All of a sudden, convenience is not on your side, and now the e-newsletter is the last thing on your mind. We now offer an easy-to-use feature that is perfect for those of you that have little time to spare. Just text the word ENDTIME to the number 22828. It's that easy. Text ENDTIME to the number 22828. That's ENDTIME to to the number 22828.
For years, I've been interested in Bible prophecy, but never could find the truth, until the day that I stumbled upon a radio show called Politics and Religion. Two of my questions that no one could ever answer were, who will be the Antichrist, and will Islam ever control the world? The day I listened to Politics and Religion, Irvin just happened to be talking on this subject and recommended the DVD, Will Islam Rule the World? This lesson based everything on Scripture, and it gave me answers that I'd been seeking for a long time. Get your copy of Will Islam Rule the World. Call 1-800-ENDTIME.
Tired of the same old boring TV? Tired of the not-so-reality TV? We have the answer. Tune in to the exciting show that keeps you up to date with current events. Hope, meaning, answers. That is the message that Irvin Baxter's End of the Age series represents. You can tune in every Sunday on Daystar at 10:30 p.m., Mondays on the Church Channel at 9 p.m., or tune in to TBN on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m., all Central Standard Time. Get informed today.
Now, what we're trying to do today is to make some sense of the Arab Spring. Before we do go there, however, I do want to let you know how we're coming on the translation project. I'm excited to tell you that once our match grant comes in, and it will, we have matched it now, thanks to you. But we are counting the matched grant at $91,453.69, which means that we only have less than $30,000 to go to get to our $120,000 goal. So let's not run out of steam now. Let's push the accelerator and let's push things across the goal line. I am so excited that 90% of the world will soon be able to view the prophecies that Almighty God said He would put in the hands of the end time people for the sake of fomenting one last great end time revival. I've told you about that a lot of times, but it's in the Bible that there were certain things He would reserve for the people of the time of the end. And those are the things that we have put in this course called Understanding the End Time. Well, with this translation project, up until now, it was only available in less than 30% of the people of the world. It was only in English, and less than 30% of the world's people speak English. But yet, with the translations we are doing right now, over 90% of the world will be able to hear this material that Almighty God said, I will put this in the hands of the people of the end time to let them know that they're on the brink of my second coming. So we're excited. That's what the translation project is all about. Please help us to get across this finish line, whether your contribution is $10, $50, $1,000, $10,000. If you want to, just call up and just wipe it out. I mean, $29,000 will wipe out the whole thing. So if you get tired of hearing me talk about it, well, you know the answer to it, just do it. Anyway, no matter whether your gift is large or small, doesn't make any difference. God knows. Your $25 gift may be bigger to you than $10,000 would be to someone else. God knows that, doesn't He? That's in the Bible. So it doesn't matter whether it's big or small. You know what you can do, but please help us if you possibly can. If you want to help, call 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com on the web, and in the upper right-hand corner of our homepage, you will see a red button that says Donate. Push that. It'll take you to the translation project. Enter in how much you want to give and your payment arrangement, and it's all there. It's very, very drop dead simple, and so we will get that. Let's take it over the top. Wouldn't it be great if we finish this thing this week? We could then talk about something else, and we do have something else really, really important to talk about, but I'm not telling you what it is until we finish this particular project. So thank you for all you've done. We appreciate it. We're going to make it. I know we are. We've come this far by faith. I know we're going to make it, but what are we? I guess we're 3/4 of the way through, right? 3/4 of the way through. So we've got 1/4 of the way to go. We're 75% done with this project. So let's push the gas and let's get it done. Now we're talking today about the Arab Spring, and I've been talking about the responsibility to protect and how that this is all illustrated, especially clear in the action that's been taken against Muammar Gaddafi and Libya. Here's what happened. On February the 15th, it all of a sudden flared up in Libya. What happened was there's this human rights activist, and his name is Fethi Tarbel, and he was arrested by the Gaddafi government. This caused all kinds of demonstrations, and within 11 days, the UN acted quick. I mean, they've been running this thing for 6 months with Syria, but for some reason, they apparently really wanted Gaddafi out. Within 11 days, the United Nations imposed sanctions on Gaddafi and referred Libya's crackdown on the rebels to the International Criminal Court. The UN Security Council recommended to the International Criminal Court that they investigate Libya. This is within 11 days of the beginning of this thing. Okay, so then finally, on March the 17th, which was about 1 month after all this started, March the 17th, the Security Council voted to authorize a no-fly zone over Libya and the enactment of all necessary measures in order to protect civilians against Gaddafi's army. Now, all necessary measures was a blank check because NATO ended up writing this thing to be able to bomb Gaddafi's compound, to be able to engage in war on the side of the rebels, also to supply the rebels with all the arms that they needed, and finally to put advisors on the ground. NATO went way beyond what the UN actually authorized, but once they were in, who was going to say anything? Who loved Gaddafi anyway? So consequently, finally, on June the 27th, the ICC issued a warrant for the arrest of Gaddafi, his son, Saif al-Islam, and intelligence chief Abdullah al-Sanusi. So they placed warrants for the arrest. Now, what's this all about? I told you they're using the responsibility to protect and the International Criminal Court. If they can get their hands on Gaddafi and get him to the court, he's locked up and he's going straight to trial. Now, do you understand the power of this? That's not where the story of Libya ends, however, because now that Gaddafi's on the run, we don't know for sure where he is yet, but his power is broken. He's no longer in his capital. He's had to run from his compound. He's somewhere. Some people think he's already moved to another nation. But now that that's happened, then what next? We've got the rebels moving in here, whoever they are, to run the government. But beyond that, the reports are pouring in that all of the big oil companies are rushing in to take over the administration of Libya's oil. Okay, now I told you there are 4 terms that keep showing up anytime you read about the Arab Spring. They are responsibility to protect. That's the UN's blank check for going in and interfering in the domestic affairs of a nation. Number 2, we've got the International Criminal Court. That's what you can use to strike fear into the heart of kings and presidents. You say, well, once they say they're going to arrest them, they're going to run. They're not going to stand still. Right, but guess what else? All the kings and presidents of the world know that this is an option now. And so every decision they make, they now check international law. They all have international lawyers on their staff now. Am I violating international law? What's that mean then? Well, that means that all the kings and presidents fear the world governmental system because they know they could run afoul of this system and end up being on trial before the International Criminal Court. Okay, so we've got the responsibility to protect. We've got the International Criminal Court, and then we have NATO. Now, remember, NATO was an army without a mission. After the Warsaw Pact was dissolved, NATO had been formed to guard Western Europe against encroachment by communist Eastern Europe. But once the Berlin Wall came down, the Cold War was over, Gorbachev dissolved the Warsaw Pact, and many people thought that NATO would be dissolved as well, but it wasn't. And then the world community needed an army back in Bosnia back in the 80s, and so NATO volunteered for that. And then Bill Clinton wanted to go in and take out Milosevic because he was the blockade to integrating Yugoslavia into the European Union, which Yugoslavia was a vital part, occupying vital real estate, and they wanted Yugoslavia in. Milosevic didn't want to be in. He knew that was the end of sovereignty, and so he stood against it. So Clinton went in and took him out. and replaced him with another government. But not only that, but they wanted Milosevic before the World Court, and Yugoslavia had no extradition treaty, so they tried doing it by executive order. The Supreme Court of Yugoslavia said that's against the Constitution, so don't worry. Helicopter swooped in that night and kidnapped Milosevic, hauled him off to the Hague. Now, I'm telling you the truth, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you the truth. You like world government? You better make sure you like world government, because once you get a world government, there's nobody to slap its hands. You've destroyed your checks and balances. You know, if you have an Adolf Hitler, at least there's the United States of America somewhere that can raise up and eventually remove him from power. But once you get this one world governmental system, and if another Adolf Hitler gets control of the only arm that's left and the only structure that's left, you've destroyed your checks and balances. You say, oh, that'll never happen. Oh, yes, it will. The Bible specifically prophesies that there will be a world governmental system established and that a man will arise, gain control over that world governmental system. That man is called in your Bible the beast or the Antichrist. It is coming. And what you are seeing now with the Arab Spring, you're seeing NATO now becoming the army of the United Nations. The UN passes a resolution, and who enforces it? NATO. Now, are you getting this? So we've got responsibility to protect. That's the excuse to go in. We got the International Criminal Court. That's the court system that you can grab the leaders that oppose the United Nations and put them on trial. Then you've got NATO. That's the military arm of the United Nations now. NATO has become the official military of the one world governmental system. Now, if you don't think I'm telling you the truth, check and see who is over in Libya enforcing the United Nations resolution. It's NATO. Who went in and made war against Yugoslavia under the leadership of Bill Clinton? NATO. So everywhere you find the United Nations, you now find NATO, because NATO was an army without a mission. Now they have a new mission, and that is to place themselves at the service of the world community of the United Nations. And then what's driving the whole thing? Libya controlled 4% of OPEC's oil. Not only that, but it's very accessible. It's very good oil, number one. Number two, it's right on the Mediterranean. You don't have to ship it through pipelines. You just put it on ships, and there it goes. Take it to Europe, take it to the United States of America, wherever you want to go. It's very, very accessible. So it was valuable. So it didn't take the world community long. And you say, I don't think this is about oil. Well, you better read the articles. I'm looking at a list of articles I have been collecting. Let me just read some of the headlines to you, just since I'm operating off the cuff here. Listen to what some of the headlines say. Libyan war about oil. Libyan war about oil, U.S. lawmaker says. Libya oil war. Is it that simple? Oil, a major prize in fight for control of Libya. NATO nations set to reap spoils of Libya war. Libya war is NATO conquest of oil-rich South, Russian diplomat says. Now, that's just what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's just 6 articles I happen to have in front of me right now. They're out there by the scores. Oh, not a pretty picture, is it? It's the picture of one world government's what it is.
17 million, Shanghai, China. 13 million, Moscow, Russia. 20 million, Mexico City, Mexico. This is the population of just a few cities that currently don't have understanding of the end time. But imagine the billions of people in places like Paris, France, Rome, Italy, Cairo, Egypt, and many other cities throughout the world that currently need the end time message translated in their language. Irvin Baxter has a burden to get the End of the Age series, Understanding the End Time, translated into the 8 major languages of the world. The translation project will take a total of just $120,000. If you'd like to participate in reaching the world with this message, call 1-800-363-8463. Your gift of $1, $10, or $50 will make a difference. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or visit endtime.com to help reach the world with the End Time message.
Do you ever hear the news and know that something's just not right? Do you ever read about politics and think, what is going on? Maybe you wonder what all this means for you and me. Well, we finally have some answers. Irvin Baxter has a 12-lesson series called Understanding the End Time that has aired throughout the world on TBN and Daystar. This series contains lessons like United States discovered in the Bible, Islam and Bible prophecy, and the 7 trumpets. The Bible says in Daniel 11:33, "They that understand among the people shall instruct many." Would you like to be one who understands end-time events so you can instruct your friends and loved ones? If your answer is yes, then don't miss out on Understanding the End Time with Irvin Baxter. Call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and request your copy of Understanding the End Time.
The article, Libya War, is NATO conquest of oil-rich South, Russian diplomat says. The Libya conflict signals the end of NATO's eastward expansion and the beginning of a new campaign to conquer the oil-rich Muslim South, Russia's envoy to the military alliance has said. The war was the end stage of NATO's eastern expansion. From now on, NATO will expand toward its southern borders. It will project its efforts toward the south, toward traditional Islamic societies, he explained. In my own opinion, this is not the official opinion of my country, it was an oil war, he said. The West has failed to put forward any economic response to the financial crisis, and now they are trying to provide their economies with cheap hydrocarbons. What makes all of these ministries in Europe so keen to spend so much money on a new military campaign just to help the Libyan people? If you say so, you will make me laugh. Rogozin predicted that Libya is only the first country in the region to face what he called a new crusade. Now we cannot trust NATO. We cannot be sure that after a similar resolution is taken on Syria, they will not exceed that also, that in such a case, NATO bombs will start dropping on Damascus. The article goes on. But those are some of the thoughts coming from the ambassador from Russia about what's going on actually in the Middle East. Notice he says they exceeded the resolution that we gave them in Libya. Now, if we give them a resolution in Syria, they will probably exceed that as well. And that's the reason he says Russia is not going to allow a resolution against Bashar Assad. Apparently, the word has been put out by the Russian government. We will veto it if you try to get it through the UN. And perhaps that's the reason why a resolution has not been offered yet at the UN Security Council. Well, we're going to get to the phones now. And let's go first of all to Indiana. Hello, Michael. Welcome to Politics and Religion.
Hello, Irvin. I had a question about the UN vote for the Palestinian state. I wondered whether you thought the Israeli Defense Force would be prepared for demonstrations that would happen in the wake of the UN vote. And also, this was the 39th anniversary of the Munich massacre this past Monday on the 5th of September. And the terrorists for Black September group were trained in Libya. And my question also, was Libya part of Egypt when the Israelites were there as slaves? I just wanted your comments on that. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I do not know for sure that Libya was part of Egypt when the Israelites were there. I would think not. I don't know that Libya has ever been part of Egypt. I'm not absolutely positive I'm right on that. However, concerning your question about what will happen when the vote is taken at the UN Security Council, first of all, and then at the UN General Assembly about Palestinian statehood. Most of you out there know by now that the Palestinians say we are going to the UN Security Council, and if they do, it is pretty well assured that the U.S. is going to veto their application for membership in the UN. They then say they will go to the UN General Assembly and ask for non-member statehood recognition. If they do that, according to an article I read over the weekend, they will have about 120 votes, which is a healthy majority. I don't believe it would be a two-thirds majority. They're pushing for 140 votes out of the 192 nations that are members of the United Nations. So 140 votes, that probably would come up to the two-thirds watermark. Now, I think that only a majority is needed in order to grant unto them non-member statehood. Once that would be done, they believe that would mean that, especially if they are recognized within 1967 borders with Israel as their capital, then all of a sudden the official position would be that Israel is occupying their state. The United States of America is trying to prohibit this, trying to stop this, threatening to take away the funding that we send each year to the Palestinians. There's all kinds of back and forth negotiations taking place right now. It looks like it's headed to the United Nations, though, and that's not very far away. By the way, the 20th, some articles have said the 20th, others have said the 23rd of September is when this historic vote will be taken. We'll find out very quickly exactly when it's going to happen. Anyway, we're in interesting territory right now. And now Mr. Abbas is cautioning his people, no violence, because the violence that the Palestinians resorted to under Yasser Arafat greatly discredited the Palestinian Authority. However, under Abbas, he has been able to prevent violence by and large, and it has given the world community a much higher regard for the Palestinians, saying that he can keep them from violence, and also they have now built the structures for governance, and we believe it has come time to reward them statehood. Now, the real caveat here is it would be one thing if they applied for statehood. Even Israel might vote for that. But once they apply for statehood with borders of pre-1967 and also with Jerusalem as their capital, now you're asking the world community to walk where angels fear to tread, because this is the stuff that war in the Middle East is made of. Nobody knows exactly what Israel will do, since the Palestinians are wanting to move unilaterally instead of by negotiations. Israel has threatened to also move unilaterally and to go ahead and annex all of the West Bank. So we're in uncharted waters here, and it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen. And probably all we can do at this point is wait and see. Okay, back to the phones. And Estelle calling from Texas. Hello, Estelle.
Hi, Pastor. I wanted to ask a question. This is not relevant to what you're talking about right now, but this is something that has puzzled me for quite some time. The vision in Zechariah 5, and also the statement that was made in Ecclesiastes 10 and 20, which said, "Curse not the king, no, not in thy thought, and curse not the rich in thy bedchamber, for a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which has wings shall tell the matter." And when I looked at that verse, and then I looked at the vision that was given to Zechariah in chapter 5, I wondered, with the technology that we have through our satellite systems, is it possible that this is what Zechariah was seeing? We have a satellite that's called Hotbird 8 and Hotbird 6, right? So I was thinking the bird of the air will, carry the matter or tell the voice, hear the voice and carry the matter or whatever. That just said it. I turned away from it. So, but I wanted you to look at that and just kind of tell me Do you think this is what Zechariah was seeing? And I was puzzled by the two women that are in this passage. I know it says some things there. And then when it gets to the end of the chapter, in verse 11, it says, "And he said unto me, build it a house in the land of Shinar." So when I did a study on Shinar, I ended up finding out that that is modern-day Iraq. So how does Zechariah chapter 5 play in what's going on in Iraq right now and our satellite technology and those statements that's made in Ecclesiastes?
Yeah, well,
Help me?
first of all, Estelle, this is expressing a principle that has always been true.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want it repeated, don't tell it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was true 2,500 years ago, and it's true today. You've heard people say, if they have a secret and somebody's trying to get them to tell the secret, they'll say, well, if I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Oh, my goodness.
Because if you don't want a secret told, don't tell it. And so that's, first of all, a principle saying that what is spoken in secret, a little bird will hear it, carry it away. And because everybody's got this closest friend that they're the only ones they would tell it to, but that friend's got a close friend, and that's the only one they would tell it to. And before long, what you spoke in your most secret chambers, suddenly you read in the papers headlines the next day or whatever. So that's the first thing that this is saying. Now, some of this I'm probably going to have to comment on another day because I haven't been down this chapter in a long, long time, and I don't want to give you an answer just to try to give you an answer because I'm not sure. So I need to beg off on that and see if I can't come back on that later.
Okay. But is Shinar really modern-day Iraq right now?
Yeah, Shinar is in the Bible many times, and it was Babylon.
Okay.
It was Babylon, which is in Iraq. But whether this pertains a prophecy back then, because Zechariah lived back in the days of Babylon when Israel was in captivity to the Babylonians. So whether this is a prophecy for us today or whether this is something pertaining to them back then, that's the big question.
Okay. All right. Well, God bless you. Thank you for trying to answer me so far.
Well, I'm sorry I can't give you a complete answer off the cuff.
But studying. God bless you for your ministry. We just enjoy it a lot.
Hey, I appreciate it very much, Estelle. Thank you very much.
All righty. Have a good day, sir.
And I've always tried to not give answers irresponsibly. If I don't know, I just have to tell you I don't know. So I'd rather do that than try to bluff my way through and act like I'm smart when I'm not. But anyway, I will try to read this and get back to you later on.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot, Estelle. God bless you very much. And let me see. I'm afraid we don't have time for the next caller. We'll just stay right there, and we'll get to you immediately after the break. Just to reiterate for those of you that may be tuning in a little bit late, we're talking today about what's really behind the Arab Spring. What's taking place right now? I know that Tunisia, when they installed their government, they now have signed on to the International Criminal Court. Also, the rebels that are taking over in Libya, I just read, are ready to sign on to the International Criminal Court. What does this mean? This means that they are signing on to the one world governmental system. And, of course, it's obvious it means that because the army of the one world government is the one fighting side by side with them. If it wasn't for the NATO going in and fighting against Gaddafi, this thing would probably be over with Gaddafi firmly in power today. But it has come out that NATO bombed many places, not just kept Gaddafi's planes out of the air, but bombed many places. Now that it's also coming out that NATO supplied millions of dollars worth of arms to the rebels, and then finally, because the rebels were so inept and untrained, that NATO put their own advisors on the ground to lead the attack against Gaddafi. So we're talking about the world government inside of Libya.
Technology, technology, technology. I know what you're thinking. It isn't for me. Some I've heard say it's only for geeks. Well, not anymore. Digital downloading has become quite simple, so that for all of us not so up to date with technology, can do it with a breeze. Whether you're snowboarding in Alaska or climbing Mount Everest, or just simply sitting with some friends who think they know all the answers to Bible prophecy, you can now download tons of product from all your technical gadgets. Don't even ask me to name them. Go to endtime.com day or night, and in a matter of minutes, guess who looks like a genius? Your friends will be speechless. Go to www.endtime.com. That's ENDTIME.com. Click on shop and you're in business. Don't delay, download today, and become a part of the Endtime Geek Club.
Death, destruction, poverty, war, disease. These are only some of the things that are ahead in the end time. Want to know more? Join us in reaching out and informing the world that over 2 billion people will die. We as a nation can't hide from this. We have to tell everyone we know about the prophesied war that will start from the river Euphrates. Call now to get your copy of World War III and spread the message that the end time is now. Call 1-800-END-TIME.
Can't get enough of politics and religion? Well, neither can we. We have some great news for all of you Bible prophecy gurus. Think no, not pre-trib, different subject, pre-show. Irvin Baxter will be teaching the End of the Age series. Here's what you do. Just log on to endtime.com/radio Monday through Friday at 2:30 p.m. Central Time and click on the live webcast button. Cha-ching! More Bible prophecy? How confusing having a favorite show. We feel your pain. Call 1-800-END-TIME for more information.
We are excited. Translation project, $91,453.69 before the start of the program today. What that means is we are $28,600 and some dollars away from, around $600 away, $28,600 away from finishing this drive and putting the Understanding the End Time, the 14 hours of prophecy that this world desperately needs to know now. I mean, if you know that, you're going to look at the world totally different. And so thank you for making it possible. All of you that have contributed, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I am so excited that this information is going to be made available to 90% of the world now. Oh, by the way, I got to tell all of you, many of you have contributed sacrificially to put us on television. Well, I was in Jerusalem, and I remembered that Daystar network is aired in Jerusalem. So I calculated the time difference, and on Sunday night, our program, of course, is on Daystar at 10:30. And so I went ahead and thought, well, that's going to be 6:30 on Monday morning Israeli time because they're 8 hours ahead. So I flipped it on at 6:30, and lo and behold, there it was, End of the Age being televised throughout Israel. I was so grateful to God. I was so thankful. Well, then, we're also on a Monday night at 10 o'clock. So I was up at 6 o'clock the next morning. I wanted to check it again just to make sure it was there. Sure enough, there we are again, teaching the prophecies of the Bible to the nation of Israel. I was so thankful. Joy swelled up in my heart. And so all of you that are making that possible, because you're a monthly partner, you help us to pay those television bills. Let me tell you, it's working. Thank you from the very bottom of my heart. Thank you. If you're not a partner with End Time, you can be. Just pick up the phone and tell the operators you'd like to be a partner, whether it's $20 a month. Our average partner is about $20, $25 a month. We have some partners that are $1,000 a month. We have some that are $10 a month. We have some that are $5 a month. So the amount's not what's critical. The amount is do what you can. And so if you'd like to be a partner with us, please get on the End Time team. I mean, we've got battles to fight. We've got people to reach. We've got, it's going to be, this End Time is going to be the most exhilarating, fascinating, motivating time ever. This is the greatest time to be alive. Let's get back to the phones right now, though. Let's go now to Oklahoma. And hello, Don. Welcome to Politics and Religion.
Yes, I'm here, Irvin. Thank you for taking my call.
Welcome.
I have two short questions, and I'm referring to chapter 14 in Zechariah, where Jesus comes back and split them out of olives. And then we jump up to verse 8, where he says, "And the living water shall go out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea and half of them toward the hinder sea." Are they talking about the water from the Mediterranean flowing into the Dead Sea, or what are they talking about?
Well, of course, splitting the Mount of Olives happens when Jesus comes back and the earthquake hits. The Bible says in Revelation 11 that 7,000 will die in that earthquake. Plus, that earthquake will be a worldwide earthquake. The city of Rome will be totally destroyed. So the splitting of the mountain takes place there. Now, as far as the waters flowing out, if that is referring to literal waters, then it expresses that water will flow out from Jerusalem, half toward the hinder sea, half toward the former sea, part toward the Mediterranean Sea, part toward the Dead Sea. I do not know for sure what that means. I will tell you this, however. They have just discovered the largest underground river of water ever discovered in the nation of Israel. They were putting in their underground subway system, and they hit water, the biggest they've ever hit. I don't know whether this means when this earthquake hits, the water sources underneath Jerusalem, yet undiscovered, will suddenly surge to the top and half will go toward the east and half toward the west. I don't know. But as you mentioned that to me, I just thought of that because I just read the article the other day that they have uncovered the largest underground river in Jerusalem. Now, that's big news in Jerusalem because water is the biggest need of the Middle East. They need water more than they need oil. So I'm not sure that's the answer to your question, but it is an interesting possibility.
All right, thank you. One other question in Revelation 6, verse 6, where we're talking about a penny of wheat for a loaf of bread, and et cetera, and et cetera. What I don't understand, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Who does the oil and the wine go to?
That black horse there, I believe, is capitalism.
Yes.
And I believe that that's a prophetic stock market report. Dow Jones Industrial's up so much, AT&T down so much. That's, a measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny. And then if you hurt the oil and the wine, you will not get reelected. Remember when Bill Clinton's campaign back in, 1992? The bumper sticker all over this nation was, "It's the economy, stupid." That was the bumper sticker. And so if you hurt the oil and the wine, and Barack Obama is dealing with that right now, the economy is so terrible that people are starting to say there's no way he can be reelected. He just hasn't been able to manage the economy. And I just read that today, actually. So I believe that's what it means, is if you're in a capitalist system, don't you dare hurt the oil and the wine, two symbols of trade in Bible days. I believe that's what that's talking about.
Well, thank you very much, Irvin, and God bless you.
Okay. Hey, thank you too, Don. Appreciate the call very much. And let's go now to Washington. Hello, Cody. What's on your mind?
I'm wondering, I'm reading here in Mark, and I'm confused about Elijah, how everybody thought he was Jesus. They thought that Jesus was Elijah. And Jesus says in Mark 9:12, he says, Elijah is coming first and restores all things. I'm just confused of what Elijah's role is. Why? I never understood that. Why? Because they met on the Mount of Transfiguration. I don't understand that whole thing.
Okay, well, let me explain it to you. In Malachi, the last chapter of the last book of the Old Testament, there's a prophecy that Elijah will come before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So the Jewish people were looking for Elijah more than they were looking for Messiah, because they knew Elijah was supposed to come first. So they asked Jesus, if you're the Messiah, where's Elijah? He was supposed to come first. And Jesus said, I say unto you that Elijah hath indeed come already, and they have done to him whatsoever they will. And thus they understood that he spake to them of John the Baptist. So when John the Baptist was born, if you'll go back and read the account of his birth in the book of Luke, it states there was a prophecy that day that came forth upon him. And the prophecy stated that this child will go forth in the spirit and power of Elijah. So John the Baptist fulfilled the role of Elijah, the forerunner of the Messiah, and that's what that's talking about.
So John the Baptist had the power of Elijah.
John the Baptist came forth in the spirit and the power of Elijah, in that the anointing. He came forth, and his job was to prepare the way of the Lord, to make his path straight. And he was there to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers, in order for their hearts to get ready for Jesus to come minister to them.
Okay, so when John the Baptist came, and that was Elijah's fulfillment.
Yes, because Jesus said, I say unto you, Elijah hath indeed come already.
Huh. All right, hey, thank you.
Okay, most welcome, Cody. Appreciate the phone call very much. These are such interesting things that God has put in the Scriptures for all of us. We've been talking today about what's the Arab Spring really all about. Now, let me bring it together real quick in the minute or so we have left. The Arab Spring is being exploited. Whether it was planned this way or not, I'm not sure. But it is being exploited by making an excuse for the United Nations to come in. And this was most perfectly illustrated with Libya. Within days of the demonstrations beginning, the UN passed a resolution. I'm talking about within 11 days of the first demonstration. The UN passed resolutions condemning, actually putting sanctions upon Muammar Gaddafi, and also after 11 days, they recommended that the International Criminal Court look into his practices and issue a warrant for his arrest, both of which did occur. So the United Nations is exploiting Libya, and what's the outcome ultimately? Gaddafi is gone, and this oil-rich country, Libya, now has fallen under the control of NATO, which is the military arm now of the world community and of Western Europe and the United States of America. Articles are appearing all the time that this Arab Spring is really about oil, oil, and oil. Control of the oil. Because oil is the lifeblood of the industrial nations of the world. And oil is getting more scarce. Why? Because China just passed in its daily consumption of oil the United States of America. So now you've got these two huge economic giants, the U.S. and China, and they're both competing for the world's oil. But guess who has the greatest military? The U.S. So the U.S. is using its military, operating under the guise of NATO, but we're supplying most of the airplanes of NATO and most of the fighter pilots of NATO. That's what's really going on here. When the U.S. tried to take a back seat, the other countries of NATO couldn't pull it off, so the U.S. had to go back in and finish the job. The U.S. is in this thing up to its eyeballs. One more time, we're driving toward our translation project to reach this entire world. If you want to help, give us a call. The number to call is 1-800-ENDTIME. God bless you all. Good to be back in the States, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Politics and Religion is a production of Endtime Ministries. We are a daily 1-hour broadcast dedicated to bringing you the prophetic fulfillments happening every single day. If you would like to listen to archive programs, subscribe to Endtime Magazine, find a prophecy conference, order Endtime products, or subscribe to our free weekly e-newsletter, call 1-800-ENDTIME. Or go to endtime.com and take advantage of everything that the website has to offer. To be a part of Endtime Ministries, partner with us and help this message go to the entire world. Endtime Ministries is a partner-supported ministry. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our loyal partners and listeners for helping make Politics and Religion and Endtime Ministries possible.
If you would like to have a copy of today's program, you can obtain it by simply calling us at 1-800 End Time, or you can go to our website, www.endtime.com. You can either order the physical product from there and it'll be shipped to you, or there's also a place there for you to digitally download it, and you can have it within minutes and be enjoying it in the privacy of your own home. In addition to this offer, let me remind you, this is one lesson in our Understanding the End Time series. The first one is the United States in the Bible. The second one is the New World Order is world government. The third one, Islam and Bible prophecy. The fourth one, World War III. The fifth one, Israel's God-given destiny. Number 6, Israel, God's prophetic time clock. Number 7, Holy Roman Empire reborn. 8, Antichrist and the false prophet. 9, 666, Mark of the Beast. And number 10, the coming one world religion. I think a lot of you are going to want to have all 10 of these marvelous prophecy lessons. If you go through just these 10 DVDs, each of them 1 hour, you are going to know more about Bible prophecy than the average student graduating with a degree from a theological seminary. We need to know where we are right now. Jesus Christ said, I tell you these things before they come to pass, so that when they do come to pass, you might believe. So the number to call one more time, 1-800-END-TIME, that's 1-800-363-8463, or go to endtime.com.
You can now have all 10 brand new Understanding the End Time DVDs, filmed in End Time's new cutting-edge studio with green screen technology and beautiful full-screen graphics. All 10 hours are just $155. Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now.